Hi everyone, my name is Cheryl. Welcome to my Happy Handcraft Studio. I didn't mean to be away for so long, but life happens. What can I say? Everything's been going well. We've had great weather. I've had great times with friends. I had stitching at the library thanks to the city stitcher, Judy. She organizes that for us. And at our last meeting, we met a lovely stitcher from up north, Lisa. So Lisa, it was great to see you. Anyone who is interested in stitching at the library, which is in Calgary, Alberta, please check out Judy, the City Stitcher's channel. She has all the information. We're meeting this Saturday at the Signal Hill Library at 9:30. Now, I know so many of us are introverts, and it's hard for us to go to new situations where we don't know people. But if you're out there, you already know us. You know me. If you look at Judy's channel, you know her, and you know Stitchers. We're all the same person. We just love to meet other people who like stitching. So please, come on over. It'd be great to meet you. So I had a question last time about my DMC thread tracker inventory spreadsheet. Now that is on Etsy. It's at XStitchCollective, and it's really inexpensive. It's like less than $2, I think, and it goes on sale. So it's a great tracker to have. So I have been focused on stitching, and I'm really happy with what I've accomplished. I know in January I was upset because I didn't have any finishes, but I have finishes this time. Nothing fully finished, but finishes, so I'm happy. The first thing that I finished was Squirrel. I love Squirrel. Squirrel is on this side. Squirrel is from Mr. X Stitch, Mr. Cross Stitch. It was in a book of his. It's on 14 count Aida, and I used the called for DMC colors. So now I'm looking forward to getting him finished. Have it out for fall. Love that. So Squirrel is finished. Then my next finish is Labyrinth the Owl. So Labyrinth is a free stitch from the Little Stitcher. I'm not sure what this fabric is. I know it's an uneven linen, kind of a rustic one. I really like the look of it. And I used the called for DMC. So my job now is to get both of those finished, and I have other finishes. I'm usually so good about getting my finishes fully finished within just, a week or two. But I haven't, so I have a new goal. So my whip go for February, for number 7, I chose a whip in season. And so the in-season whip that I was working on is this one. This is 'Tis the Season. Now, 'Tis the Season is a Rosa design, and it was in Punch Needle and Primitive Stitching Magazine, Christmas, Winter 2021. Now, I'm doing mine on a 28 count even weave in the color Mushroom. And so I just have some more holly leaves and berries to do on that side. And that one will be complete. This was my winter solstice start in 2022. And then my next whip for number 11 was a whip with an animal, and that was squirrel. So that one I finished. So another challenge that I'm doing with Semi-Sane Stitchers, which is a Facebook group. They have all kinds of different challenges. This time I only took part in one, and it's called This or That. And your choice is to work on either a piece that is neutral or a piece that is colorful. And you just put in a start picture and an end picture. You don't have to count stitches or anything. It's just a tracking of what you've been working on. And so for that one, I was using Garden Sampler. Garden Sampler was a free pattern at Herscheners. And for this one, I'm using a tea-dyed 28 count Irish linen. And I'm liking the colors. They are springy, I think, is one of the best ways to say. And a real variety of colors. Like, it's not necessarily colors I would choose, but I like how they're going together. So I'm using the DMC. It was originally written for Valdani, but I'm just taking the call for DMC. I look forward to doing more of that as it hopefully becomes spring. All right, so I do have a couple of stitches that I do on certain days of the month. And one of those is my Queen Elizabeth II in Her Coronation Dress. This was a start that I did during the Queen's funeral. And Judy, the City Stitcher, had the great idea to work on a stitch the 6th of every month to remember her coronation day. And I'm also doing it on the 21st of every month for her birthday. And this is how she's looking so far. So I worked a bit on this part of her dress. This is on a 28 count Vintage Blue Cashel. So I'll be working on this one again this month on the 21st. And then the other piece that I'm working on a certain day every month is Remember November. This is a MarNic Designs. And so on the 11th of each month, I've been working on this one. And I have just this much so far. This is on a 28 count white Monaco using the called for DMC. So I'm really focusing on my 2022 starts. I don't want to carry them into 2024, so that means I have to work on them. And I showed last time how I have my decision wheel, Tiny Decisions wheel. It's an app. I have all my 2022 starts on there, and I press the button and I see what I'm going to be stitching. And my plan is always I'll do 2 stitches, 2 different projects, 2 different whips from that wheel before I go on to my wheel of newer starts. And so I've had some good progress. One of the previous starts I had was Hoity Toity. And Hoity Toity is Long Dog Sampler. And I'm doing this on a 32 count antique white Lugana. And I'm using the called for DMC. And I've been working over here in this area. So this is all new. And I've been working on Pumpkin Alphabet. This is the one that I will usually take to the library. So I'll have to get it prepped for this week. What I'll do is I'll put in the first stitches along here. And then when I'm at the library, I cross the X. That way I can just enjoy the conversations and not really worry about counting. So this is from With Thy Needle and Thread, and I'm doing it on a 14 count Aida, which is great for stitching away from home when I don't have an extra light or magnifier. The library room does have really bright lighting, so that isn't a concern, but at home I always use magnification. I'm also working on Oology, and I've worked on 2 of the birds. This is bird 2 and 3. I'm not sure which is which, but I'm making progress on both of those. It'd be great to have those ones done before Easter because they you finish them in an egg shape, so that would be nice. So Oology is from Satsuma Street, and this is on an ice blue cashel linen. And I'm using the called for DMC. These ones are full coverage, but they're small. And then another new start. This one is called Christmas Ball, and it is from an Etsy shop, X Cross Stitch Pattern X. Excuse me. And I have just this kind of part of the tree done so far. It's nice to work on, you know, a really different color. So this was one of my, 12 starts on New Year's Eve. So I didn't get a lot originally, so I'm having to fill in quite a bit. Next one. This one is called Rudolph. And this is from Just Cross Stitch Magazine, Christmas Ornament 2022. And this is on a linen that I dyed in denim, Ritz colored denim. .28 count. I'm working on a Prairie Schooler, and that is Santa 2006. And he's coming along. There's a lot of stitching in that coat. And this is, it's an 18 count putty khaki, but it's a slippery fabric. So you have to be really careful about the stitches that they don't kind of slide over. That one's coming. I'm also working on Christmas Snow Globe. And again, this was an Etsy pattern. put them both together so you can see where I'm at. This is on a linen that I picked up at our fabric and yarn sale for the Ujamagrammas. It's called Permin of Copenhagen. Nice blue color, and this is a 28 count. So again, this was a new year, new start, so I didn't have much done before I started working on it again. Another new year, new start is called Christmas Deer. And again, this is an X cross stitch pattern X on Etsy. And I'm doing this on Charles Craft 28 count Monaco. And I'll keep the picture so that you can see. So at here I have a T for the top so that I know which way is up. Oh, let's put this the right way. So this is just the eye of the deer there. Kind of a different style, kind of a graphic. I like that. Again, lots to do. And last one of these that I worked on and I really enjoyed it. This is called Happy Mood Point. And the title is SS089 Sampler Quaker. And it was on Etsy. And I brought this out just recently for the first time since New Year's. And I really enjoyed it. It was just great to stitch. For one thing, it's on one of my favorite linens. This is 32 count Pearl Gray Lugana. I love it. And I'm just doing it in 1 DMC color 3750. So I'm enjoying that. So stitching plans for the rest of February. I'm going to continue to use my tiny decision wheel. And what I realized today when I took off Squirrel and Labyrinth the owl is that those pieces on that wheel are going to get even more coverage, more times being stitched. The way I've been working it is I do 2 spins of the tiny decision wheel for my 2022 whips, and then I do 1 spin for my new year, new start whips. So it's kind of the best of both. I enjoy all my 2022 whips and I'm seeing progress there, and I get to also work on my brand new ones, which is always exciting. I do have the Queen Elizabeth II in Her Coronation Dress for the 21st, and other than that, I'm just going to stitch away. So that's stitching. My temperature blanket. I've been really enjoying this. So every morning I get up and I stitch 1 row on my temperature blanket. This temperature blanket was a free pattern at Michael's. There is also a video tutorial, which I will link in the description box. And like I said, every day it's just 1 row. So my roll looks like this. So when I talked to you last, I was right in this area. And I was so excited because there was going to be cold weather and I was going to get some purples in. Well, that was as much purple as there was. We've had just beautiful days. You know, this sage green is just above 0. This color here that's called Arctic is just right around 0. So it's been a really mild winter which we love. It is going to get cold again for maybe 2 days, so change up the color a little bit. So that's been great. The crocheting is just a lovely meditative pastime, I would say. So I'm going to continue working on that. I have done a little bit of bag making. So I'm part of a charity group called the Ujama Baguettes. And we meet monthly and we have different challenges. And this month's challenge was to make something with the color of the year, which is Viva Magenta. And so for that, I made this project bag for our Bags, Babies, and Beyond sale. Have a nice glass fob on there. And just nice Viva Magenta lining. So I made one, and well, there was still more fabric left, so I made a second one. And pretty much the same inside. So both of these will be in the sale in October. The Ujama Baguettes, we write patterns for our charity, and they're sold 2 main places. They're sold on Etsy and they're sold at Emmeline. Emmeline's Bags. This is an online and in-person shop in Alberta where you can buy all kinds of bag making supplies. There are all kinds of fabrics, hardware for bags, and patterns for bags. And we are very fortunate that Emmeline carries our Ujama Baguette patterns, which are all the proceeds go to charity for our Grandmothers to Grandmothers campaign. So if you do buy a pattern from us on Etsy or PayHip or through Emmeline, the funds go to our charity. And so we are making one of our patterns. This is called Ready Set. And Ready Set is a yarn project bag. So it's a bucket bag. It has a handle that slides out of the way. There are pockets all around the bag. It has a drawstring top. And then for this one inside, it's difficult to see, but I have a divider. So if you were doing 2-ball knitting where you are going back and forth, or you're doing 2 socks at a time, there's a divider in there to separate your balls. And there's also a slip pocket in there. It has a cord drawstring that can tuck right in there. Now this fabric a friend gave to me, and this is fabulous fabric. It's kind of a cotton twill, and it's Liberty of London. If you know fabrics, you know Liberty of London it's really special, and it was wonderful to work with. And then the base of this is a canvas. So it's a nice sturdy bag. It's upright. So this pattern has 3 sizes. This is the mid size. The first size holds like a single skein, and it's good for like socks, a sock pattern, or a small shawl. This one is a 2 or 3 skein project, maybe even 2 or 3, and it's good for if you're making a cowl, a scarf, small shawl. And then the largest, it would be good for a small sweater, vest, that kind of thing. So beautiful bags. I really, and they're fun. They're fun to sew. I really enjoyed making it. All right, so that is bag making. quilting. So I'm going to insert a picture here of a quilt that I've just finished. It's called the Snowflake Quilt, and it was by modernhandcraft.com, and I'll include the link down below. And this was a stash buster. I used all my blues and purples in my stash, my scrap bucket for this one, and I used all my creamy colors for the snowflake part. Now the quilting was done by my friend Janet, who is a long arm quilter, and it's beautiful. I love the snowflake motif that you can see in it. So it's always nice to get a big project like a quilt done, because I have others that I have over here that now they can become the focus. So books this time. This was kind of the quirky reads time. There were some different books. The first one was called Diary of a Void. And this is, I read the Japanese translation of this. It's written by Emi Yagi. And like I said, quirky. So there's this young office worker in Japan who becomes fed up with the harassment and stereotyping. She's always left with the menial tasks. She's one of the more senior workers, but she's the one that is left to clean the coffee room, serve coffee to guests, because she is a woman. And the day comes when, okay, there's a coffee room to be cleaned, and she lies. She tells her co-workers that she just can't clean the staff room because it's making her so nauseated because she's pregnant. She's not pregnant, but it's a good excuse. And immediately she doesn't have to clean the staff room anymore. She doesn't have to clean the ashtrays. It's, there's a real plus. She also doesn't have to work overtime anymore. She can go home at quitting time. And she finds there's a whole new life out there where she can go to the market and there's still choice of vegetables and other produce that she can use. And in Japan, I guess it must be a thing that if you're pregnant, you get a special badge that you can put on your handbag when you're riding transit. That means like you should be able to sit down on the train. And so now she can sit down. And she, downloads one of those apps where you can see what the baby is supposed to be like every week, every month, and things that you should be doing for your health. And she starts to do them. And the first part is very rosy. She's very happy with her new lifestyle. And she joins like a prenatal exercise class and becomes friends with some of these mothers-to-be and finds out what it's really like to be pregnant, how these women are feeling, how their lives are at home with their partners. And this goes on till, some of these women start to have babies and she experiences what life is like for these new moms. They talk about this book as being one of the new books for feminist literature. It's very interesting. It's quirky. It's good. The next one that I've just finished reading is this one called Everything Sad is Untrue, and it says a true story. So this is from Daniel Nayeri, and he came to the U.S. from Iran as a refugee child. So we learn about why he left Iran, where he traveled through to come to Oklahoma. And the book is, I would say, he's writing it as an elementary school age child, like maybe grade 5, 6. and how hard life is for a child new to a country. You know, what he doesn't understand about popular culture and the misconceptions that kids and adults have about him. And as I'm reading this, I'm thinking every teacher who has refugee or immigrant students should read. And these days in our schools, every teacher has children who have come from away and what their life is like. You know, like one of the most common misconceptions we have is that English is their second language. English isn't their second language. English is often their third or fourth or fifth language. Because if this is a refugee child, you don't know how many countries they have come through. In Daniel's case, he came through Italy, so he learned Italian. I had many students who spoke one language, and when they came to a refugee camp, they had to learn the language of the refugee camp. You know, like if there was a school there, what language was being taught in the school? Also, you know, we often look at these children as being poor. Well, they may be poor now, but many of these students or many of these people in your classrooms came from wealthy families, professional parents who had to leave for various reasons. They had to leave their country, and now not only are they in a new country, but they're in very different circumstances. They're no longer wealthy. They're no longer respected in the community, and how difficult that can be. And I think what really stood out for me in this story was the teacher. Her name is Mrs. Miller, and she allowed, I guess, Daniel to tell his cultural stories, to bring in, you know, his folklore, his culture into the classroom. And, you know, how can teachers provide that outlet for children? And the last book, this is popular fiction. This is something that, you know, you see in all the bookshelves, and that was Mad Honey. And Mad Honey is by Jodi Picoult and co-written with Jennifer Finney Boylan. And it's a story about new starts. Olivia and her son Asher come back to Olivia's hometown, Adams, to take over the family beekeeping business. And Lily and her mother move to this same small town for a new start. And it's typical Jodi Picoult. There's always a twist. You can't really tell anything more about the book because I don't want to give any of the twists away, because her books are all about that unexpected, which makes them great. And you also learn something. You know, in this one, you definitely learn about beekeeping. And I always love books about bees. I don't know what it is, but in this one, if you have any interest in bees and beekeeping and honey, this is a great book. And then there, of course, with the twist, you learn a lot more about another topic as well. So that's my last couple of weeks. They've been great. I'm looking forward to finishing up February. I'm looking to March, because March will be spring. There's always new things in spring. All right, everyone. I hope you have happy days ahead. I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.